Roll in the city where the deals get done. Hey, numbers second to none.
Welcome to Roll in the City Business Podcast. I am your host, Kimberly McClain. Today, I'm hanging out with Amy Zittelman of Soom. We will be exploring how a dream product can become a reality. Want to learn more? Roll with us. Amy, let's just get right into it. A lot of chefs in the country may know, but for the average person, explain to the listeners today, what is tahini?
So tahini is an ingredient made from 100% roasted and pressed sesame seeds. It's probably most familiar in the American market because we use it to make hummus. So are you familiar with hummus?
Yes.
Yeah, which most people are. At this point, you do like it. Great. That's a help. Most people are familiar with hummus at this point, but still a lot of people are not familiar with tahini. My sisters and I, through the relationship of my sister and her husband, decided to set out to make tahini a more popular ingredient in the American market and really position it under a brand name that would invest our resources into consumer education and elevating the subcategory. The idea came about in 2011 when we were all kind of graduating from college, and I graduated college and started working on our first import, and we had our first sale in May of 2013. And we really had this vision that we could sell tahini to everybody, from ice cream stores to fancy restaurants to every grocery store shelf, and quickly understood how difficult that is to accomplish. However, our first sale was to a notable restaurant here in Philadelphia called Zahav. And that really set a tone for us of the opportunities in selling our product to restaurants, both because of their consumption rate, but also because of the flywheel effect of their influence and their credibility on our brand, that we were the tahini that they were using. So we grew with an omni-channel sales strategy, primarily focused on food service, which doesn't need that much branding. Luckily, it's more so about the quality of your product and word of mouth. However, the influence of our food service distribution trickled into our sales on Amazon, which we were on early on. And since actually post-COVID, since 2022, we've been growing in grocery stores nationally. So now the CPG brand, the consumer side of the brand, has really grown because we don't only sell to restaurants, we sell to both restaurants and consumer channels.
Interesting. Wow. What a incredible journey. I mean, to kind of it's something very exciting about having this concept, or having an idea and getting together, not really knowing how you're going to do it, but making it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I almost think that's the only way to really do it. Because if anybody knew how hard it would be or what it took, my God bless, why would you choose to do this? So we always joke we were dumb and young, and we were like, oh, how hard could it be? And it turns out really hard.
Very hard.
Yeah, really, really hard. But because of a variety of factors, and of course also luck and timing, tahini has grown a lot in the American market. I don't know how you came about me or our company or whatever in terms of your outreach, but we have been able to build a credible and trusted brand over the past 13 years. So that's very rewarding.
Amy elaborates on why tahini and talks about some of its distribution challenges.
I mean, we're really reserved in terms of our tahini distribution to people that are actively using tahini. So there are some really, the nice thing about it is really that bridge because of hummus. A lot of places have hummus on the menu. It's a staple on appetizer menus. Not everywhere makes it themselves. But for those that do, there's enough education out there that there's a there's a standard for good hummus now in the American market, which is nice. And Soom, because of our position in the space for the past decade, we are positioned as one of the tahinis, if not the primary tahini, for making good hummus, just based off of our credibility of the, more white tablecloth restaurants that we were able to grow the brand on. So yes, we do a little bit of hospitality. We're getting into food service management now, which is just a fascinating industry. We're really eager to see more tahini in college and university menus and on corporate menus. I mean, I think back to that naiveness of when we started. If I could find it, my first list of all the potential places that could buy Soom, I mean, it included every smoothie shop, every ice cream store, every cafe, every restaurant. Tahini is a very versatile ingredient. Now, granted, in its earliest of adoption stages, so it's only being used for a limited amount of things so far. But we have like a real, we have a path towards that like full distribution of tahini. It just might take 20 years, 20 more years, but we can wait it out.
Yeah. And what is your, right now, what is your staff size to accomplish this?
Well, we're at 7 now, including me, but we used to do our own. We've never done our own manufacturing. We've always contracted manufacturers, typically overseas, but we had our own fulfillment side of the business for the first 12 years. We actually shut that down at the end of 2024. So we were up to about 12 people, and it included a 4 to 5 person warehouse staff, which was really meaningful for the company and was really important as we were growing because we were able to maintain more control over our distribution. But eventually we ended up we were getting bigger. We couldn't find a warehouse to move into. We couldn't afford to move warehouses because the warehouse we were in was not that great, but we could afford it. And a variety of reasons, we ended up outsourcing our fulfillment. And so now we're a team of 7.
Okay. And you said you're outsourcing your fulfillment. Now, are there technology and tools that you're currently using to communicate with the manufacturers, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually primarily through traditional communication practices like phone and email. I mean, we go in person, several times a year to touch base and to talk about strategy and partnership. But mostly it's at the pace where we have all of our inputs at our manufacturers, our packaging, our labels, everything we need, and we place orders based off of our projections and velocity, and they fulfill those orders in an expected timeline. So it's not, there aren't very modern technologies that we're using for the order and fulfillment and manufacturing relationships that we're in.
Okay.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is the lead time. We have to place an order almost 15 weeks before we're even expected to sell the product, because first it gets into a queue for production, and then that gets into a queue for shipping, right? We end up filling a 20-foot shipping container, and then we schedule that freight, and then it could be on the water for anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, and then it comes to New York and it needs to clear customs, and then we need to distribute it to one of our 2 warehouses, either in New Jersey or Illinois. And then we have an inventory buffer, right? Because we never want to be out of product. So we have approximately 3 or 4 weeks worth of inventory that's first in that we need to sell. And then we sell that product. So the biggest challenge is always with a product-based business is cash flow. And so I would say that's the primary challenge is that lead time and cash flow. Also, just reality is they're wonderful partners and we respect our partnerships, but we don't have control. We are married to other people, and the fate of our business is arguably intertwined, as are many businesses. There's a pro and con to it, but to partners that are not that are not us, that are not our business and our stakeholders. On this side, I would say the biggest challenge is consumer education and the frequency of use. On average, we now have this data because we've been growing in more conventional grocery stores and we have more data. Tahini has less than 1% of household penetration in the US, so it's still a very small market. And B, the average consumption of 11 ounces of tahini, which is our standard size jar, it's a pretty small jar, is 1 per year. And
my goodness. Okay.
We need a lot of people to purchase tahini because most people are only going to use one jar or only going to purchase one jar a year. That means that's on average. That means a lot of people are purchasing far less and a few people are purchasing much more frequently. But we would, instead of, there's two ways to go about it. One is we can try to increase that consumption, which is challenging in itself, or we try to convince more and more people to try tahini for that first time and purchase that, at least that first jar, So that's what we're always strategizing and working on as it respects to our consumer channel, is how do we get somebody to purchase tahini for the first time? And then on top of that, how do we get somebody to use tahini more than just 1 or 2 times a year?
Right. I get that. Now, that's interesting that when you said how long it takes you to get the product and then how long it takes for someone to buy another one, that I can imagine that challenge.
Moving on further into the conversation, I asked Amy, how are the tariffs affecting the business? Are there any noticeable changes? Here's what she had to say.
The tariffs have been affecting Soom because we import our final product from abroad, from 2 different countries, one Israel and the second Ethiopia. So Israel ended up with a 15% tariff. Ethiopia ended up with a 15% tariff on top of a tariff that was applied to Ethiopia after their civil war. They lost a fair trade agreement. They lost a standing in a fair trade agreement called AGOA several years ago. And so our prices increased from our manufacturers when the tariffs went into effect.
Wow, that's a lot. Now, do you think that with your competitors, because I know, you have a specialty kind of product, in my opinion, is very niched or targeted. Are you finding that your competitors are having just as much trouble, or do you think they're not?
I think our competitors are having just as much trouble. One of the benefits of the way that we do business is the way we invest into our relationships with the stakeholders of our supply chain. So we were able to disseminate and negotiate the tariff across several stakeholders in order for it to not all fall onto Soom. I think our competitors have similar challenges, but they've also chosen to not raise prices at this time. And so we keep in mind our competitor decisions in order to decide our strategy. And so our category has stayed pretty stable in terms of pricing to the consumer. And we're all comfortable, it seems like, accepting lower margins for a hopefully short period of time until things change.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good for the consumer, and it's good that it didn't affect your business like some. There are some folks that are really having to raise prices or ultimately go out of business some of the smaller businesses.
You're right, Kimberly. And your point about it being a niche product is, I think, particularly relevant for this type of consumer behavior consideration, because most people don't buy a lot of tahini. I mean, some people do, and it's significant then if the price goes up. But for the average consumer that's only buying 1 jar a year, it would be okay for them to pay a little bit more, whether that's $1 more per jar, because it's not something that they're purchasing every day.
We pick up in the conversation. Amy went on to talk about the idea of affordable luxury and how people are dealing with the current cost of living.
Think about people adjusting their consumer behavior. There may be people who aren't going on a huge vacation anymore, but is still comfortable spending a lot of money at a restaurant. And there may be people that were eating out often and now are eating out less, but are comfortable spending a little bit of extra money on high quality ingredients in order to cook at home. So the fact that Soom has an omni-channel sales approach that we sell through a variety of channels, I think helps us buffer this consumer adjustment because hopefully people will still be eating at the restaurants, whether if they're not going on the fancy vacations, or for those that are sacrificing the restaurants, hopefully they'd be interested in buying restaurant quality ingredients for their meals at home. So we hope to play in a variety of consumer decisions.
Okay. And when you say restaurants, are most of these restaurants independent, or do you see selling to a lot of franchises, or even the hospitality restaurants like hotel internal restaurants?
Most are independent restaurants. We do work with a variety of small independent chains, for instance, quick service restaurants or fast casual concepts, but majority of our sales are to individual hospitality restaurants. And we're working on growing also our food service management channel, which would be selling to food service management companies that service corporate accounts, universities, hospitals, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that as a way to scale. So when you say that you are multi-channel, where's your distribution now? Is it nationally?
We sell nationally. About 40% of our business is to the food service channel. That includes these independent restaurants, food service management companies, meal kits, and small manufacturers. We also sell on Amazon and other third-party e-commerce sites like Thrive Market and Misfit Market. And about 40% of our revenue also comes from selling to brick and mortar retail. So grocery stores nationally across the country.
Want to hear the full interview and learn more about Soom and other inspirational stories of businesses that started with an idea and successfully brought it to market? Visit rollinthecity.com. Thanks for rolling with us.